Hoi! This video is sponsored by the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction. As you guys know, I am reading the Shortlist this month, which consists of 6 titles. That was a massive tongue twister. And I've just finished the first 3 titles. And so today I'll be talking about them. My last video I said I read the first chapter of each of them, so that's where I started from. I also asked you to vote for which title you'd like me to read first. I had to slightly delay A Little Life because it is massive and I didn't have time to finish it before this video. But I started out with The Improbability of Love. So I'm just gonna start off by saying that this is probably going to be my favorite. I think it's gonna be pretty hard to beat. Just a little refresher in case you can't remember what this is about. There is a painting called The Improbability of Love that has been discovered and is about to be auctioned off for what is going to be a record price. And you encounter all the people that are on their way to the auction house, and it explains what their motivations are for buying this painting. Then the next chapter is from the point of view of a woman called Annie, who I think has about hit her 30s. Her boyfriend of years and years and years has broken up with her. She's moved to London, she's working a terrible job, not having a great time, not loving life, just feeling really down. But she has gone on 1 or 2 dates with this guy and she decides to buy him a birthday present. She goes to a secondhand shop, she picks up this old painting that is really cheap and, you know, she thinks he might like it. And at the beginning of the chapter it indicates that this is a flashback. So obviously you know exactly which painting she has just picked up. So from that point you're basically working from a year ago up to the point where the book started, where obviously someone's going to have to discover that this is a famous painting that's been missing. This book switches point of view so much. The 3rd chapter is actually from the point of view of the painting, which I thought was hilarious. Of course this painting is appalled that it's been stuck in the secondhand shop for years because it should be in the hands of royalty. Within this bigger story there were so many surprises and twists and turns and so many little side alley stories about different characters. There were the most luscious descriptions of both art and really big festive meals. It explains the glamour of the art world but also sort of the dark side of the art world. There is a bit of mystery, some romance, some heartbreak, and lots of family and backstabbing. It was cheerful, it had me gasping out loud from time to time, and I think I really enjoyed the extravagance of it. Both the extravagance of how far people are willing to go to stab other people in the back, but also just the money that goes around in the art world. And I think you do pick up loads of interesting information about how paintings get their value and, you know, also just backstory on certain painters. The one thing that I found a bit tricky was that sometimes I kept messing up the characters and had to go back and forth a little bit. But besides that, this is just the perfect book for me and all my interests. But like I said in the previous video, I probably wouldn't have picked it up with this cover because this doesn't necessarily appeal to me and the inside of the book really does. Basically, I just kind of want to read more of this and I want to go visit some galleries. The next one is The Green Road by Enright. This was the first chapter that I read when I was reading the first chapters of all of them. It was one that from the first chapter wasn't necessarily the one I was most excited about, but then the 2nd chapter came as a total surprise. It starts out in the 1980s from the point of view of a girl called Hannah, and she talks about the different family members and their relationships in the town. And I in general am not crazy about books that have children as the main characters that sort of tell the story. But then for the next chapter it switches to New York in 1991 and it's from the point of view of one of the other family members, and this keeps jumping forward in time to different characters, and from then on they're basically all a little bit older. I don't want to give away too much about the rest of the story, but I found the writing really pleasant and insightful, quite touching, with lots of little bits of like humanity and wisdom sprinkled in. This wouldn't be my usual choice for the kind of reading that I do, but I did really enjoy this one. Okay, so for the final one, this is entirely different. This is Ruby by Cynthia Bond, which looks like this. This story sort of like flicks through time as well, and it sort of circles around 2 characters, Ephraim and Ruby. They knew each other when they were kids and Ephraim fell in love with Ruby, and then she moved away from this town called Liberty in Texas to New York, and then now she has moved back and people just think she has completely lost her mind and basically, you know, are not too disappointed in seeing her downfall. But Ephraim still has feelings for her and reaches out to her. Well, the first chapter has them as adults. It then goes back to them being like 9 or 8 years old, and again I was sort of thinking that maybe the rest of the book would be like that, but then it also goes back to them them being older again. This so far was the most confusing read for me, I think. I had to do a lot of going back to paragraphs and sort of rereading bits to make sure what was going on. Partly because of some of the dialect that was being used, but also partly because there's a lot of magical realism going on, which if you're not expecting it can be a little bit confusing, obviously. Some of the writing in this is absolutely beautiful. There's some gorgeous phrases, really nice sentences, but I did find this a tough read, mostly because of the subject matter. There's a lot of sexual violence and rape in this book, both in the present day and in stories reflecting back to the past, and casual other side conversations. Some of the scenes like made me wince. It felt quite like hopeless and really dark from time to time. There's a lot of discussion about racism and abuse, and intertwined in this story there's also a lot of superstition and magic and spirits. Hopefully that will give you a bit of an idea of the atmosphere. For me, I think the book that I've read that this reminded me of the most was probably White Sargasso Sea. The character being young and seeing things that they don't understand and feeling like they're being beaten down over and over again, and a general sort of unrest and violent undertone of the rest of the community. For this one, although there was a lot of beautiful writing, I did find this quite a tough read. I don't know if I'll be able to do like a full list ranking all of them, but out of these three, this one was definitely most up my alley. So if you have read any of these books, do let me know in the comments. Very curious to hear what you think. I'll be moving on to the last three. I have a week to read them, so there's going to be some speedy reading involved, and I'll be back with a review soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Info about the books will be in the description, and I will talk to you guys later. Doei!